This is episode 109, a solo episode with me, Tiffany Hinton, on Cultivating Guts. Today we're diving into a grounding and nourishing topic, herbal wisdom for stress relief and nature's toolkit for busy moms. Hey loves, it's Tiffany and welcome back to Cultivating Guts, a space where we discover peace, joy, and radiance, radiating our balance as a busy and soulful woman, as a corporate mom, and any of the caretaking women out there. I'm super excited to be back with you as we drop in today because this topic is so close to my heart. If you've been around me for any length of time, you know that I reach for the medicinal herb before I reach for the pharmaceutical. It's just the way of my life. As a mom and a corporate leader and a holistic practitioner, I've found that the herbs just aren't plants that I grow or allies, or plants that I grow in my garden. They're actually allies. They're things in my life that bring me calming. They bring me peace. They bring me energy. A mint tea in the middle of the afternoon helps my focus. Like, we're going to dive into some of this today on the podcast. What I would say is go grab a coffee if you want, or a tea, whatever is for you. And if you're on video, yes, this is Sunny, our kitten. Let's see here. So today I'm also video recording and this episode. So if you want to see us on video, you can hop over to YouTube. It's youtube.com/Tiffany Hinton. Hello if you're there. And you can actually see the kitten in our house. And if you're already watching, hey, beautiful. It's so nice to officially meet you here. We can see each other. That is amazing and awesome. And I hope you're staying grounded today. Recently, I've been reflecting on how easy it is to become the one that's putting ourselves last, right? Giving to our children, giving to our husband, giving to our checklist, giving to our day jobs, giving. But when I started to intentionally incorporate things in my life for self-care and self-love, and self-care for me is self-love, I started to notice a difference. I also intentionally started incorporating medicinal herbs about 10 years ago into my life, and it created this huge shift, whether it's reaching for a cup of tea, or it's taking a herb in a pill form, or it's putting it in the bath. There are so many things that you can do that can actually work with our immune systems and with our nervous systems and with our body. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how you can use them in your own home. We're going to go through a very simple tea recipe. But before we begin, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review the Cultivating Guts podcast. And if you send over a screenshot of your review to Tiffany at cultivatingguts.com, I will give you the gift of a free stress relieving, it's a stress buster Kriya. And I know I'm struggling today because the kitten is quite annoying and distracting, and I apologize for that. This Stress Buster video that I'll send you as a free gift for doing a subscribe, rate, or review is honestly 3 minutes. It helps you move through stuck energy. It helps clear your arc lines over your head, your crown, and it just does so much for you, and it gives you a complete reset. So whether you're at the office, and I've done this where I've went into a conference room, shut the door, and just did it, or you're at home and you just need to step away for a minute, you can even do it in your car. It's totally amazing how it resets your energy and your autonomic nervous system. So while you're listening, I would also invite you to screenshot your favorite part. Tag me on Instagram at I am Tiffany Hinton. I love seeing what resonates with you and sharing takeaways that you have from our different episodes. Thank you for tuning in and growing with our amazing community of grounding and glowing women. Now, let's take a deep breath in the herbal goodness and dive right in. Welcome to Cultivating Guts, and we are jumping right into our episode today. So I'm going to share with you a story to start out, and I am, again, using kind of an outline. It did help me on the last podcast, so we're going to try this out for a while. It's creating some structure, some masculine energy for me. Herbalism for me has always honestly been a little bit of my life, my whole life. I, for a very long time, throughout my childhood, lived with my different grandmothers, which I think many of you already know that. If you're new to the podcast, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But I grew up living in my grandmother's houses. My mother's mother was a lady that, both of them grew up during the Depression, but my mother's mother was my grandmother that could create anything from what she had in her cabinets. She could go out in her backyard, pick some stuff, grab some some herbs, some vegetables, some plants, some fruit they had, and throw stuff together, whether it was a pie or a dessert or whatever. She's also somebody that I would say my dad's mother introduced me to coffee at the age of 5, and I've been drinking it ever since. But my mother's mother introduced me to hot honey teas for a cold, or boiling a lemon when you're not feeling well, and all of these things that are medicinal, right? And the more and more that we have propagated and grown our own yard here on our homestead, the more and more herbs that I've put in. And when people come and they look and they're like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got that in the backyard, let me go grab you some. Or, oh yeah, we already have some of that. It's amazing for some people to get an idea of everything that I grow. But at the same point, just because you grow it doesn't mean it's enough to sustain your use that you need, right? I will tell you, I don't grow enough mint, which some people would be like, what? That's like grows everywhere. It propagates everywhere. But honestly, I don't grow enough mint to make my herbal teas. I don't grow, I do grow enough Melissa. Our Melissa patch is huge. So that's lemon balm if you're in the States, Melissa if you're anywhere else in the world, because the Latin name is Melissa officinalis, and it's used for anxiety, right? Lavender is another thing that I buy because we just don't have enough lavender for the amount of lavender that I would want to use. So it is interesting when you start to grow things. But I can tell you, like, the thing that I found when I was diving in and digging for holistic treatments for my endometriosis, that was probably the biggest turning point when it came to herbs for me. I'd had a doctor in the Chicagoland area tell me I could no longer be serviced at his practice because he didn't know how to treat the stage 4 endometriosis that I had. Everything he was doing wasn't working. It was now like attacking my appendix, and it was growing outside the reproductive area. And I think he just honestly had never been trained. And it was a case where he didn't have the confidence to take that on. But in doing that, I started researching, and as you know from other podcasts, I found a most amazing integrated Eastern medicine doctor. But I also found a book by Diane Mills, and it was about treating endometriosis, and she was from the UK, and she wrote about herbs that you should be taking, from primrose oil to not consuming certain things, to adding chamomile and lavender for calming. And it was like, oh wow, there's this whole additional space of the plants that we grow providing us medicine. And the more and more that I dived into my witch, I dived into the piece of my soul that's been here, like the piece that it just knows, it's deeply connected to God, that divine connection. I just knew intuitively, like, plants just come to me naturally. And so I call myself a green witch now because that's where I identify. But it's because intuitively I can identify a plant pretty easily, know exactly what it's for. Intuitively ask God, the universe, like, well, what will this heal? It comes to me easily. We'll be in nature and I'll be like, oh, that's such and such, or that's, Queen's lace, or that's. And yes, I've studied and I look at a lot of stuff, and I've been very interested in plants and herbs since I was a child, but some people would call me a walking dictionary. I don't know that I'm that good, but when it comes to things that I absolutely love, I will say that yes. And so even now, like I said in the intro, I reach for a mint tea. I reach for chamomile and lavender in the bath. I reach for certain medicinal oils and essential oils because the plant in the oil is what I'm reaching for. The rosemary for protection, the rosemary for waking myself up in the morning. I have violet, if you're on video, violet salve here. Violet salve I was introduced to from St. Hildegard's research, but violet salve is for shrinking cysts and tumors and growths on your skin. So there's just all these different things, and they have just become a part of my life. They have become a part of my day-to-day. So whether I'm brewing a cup of tea, or I'm making a tincture, or I'm soaking certain plants in vodka to extract, right, using an alcohol-based extraction method, or soaking them in olive oil or almond oil, or we are making herbal cough syrup with honey and, and very steeped, long steeped, cold steeped herbs, right? Or adding things to the bath water. That's just how I live, and I love it, and it works for me. And I reach more and more and more for the medicinal plants as medicine that I do for pharmaceuticals. One of the companies that I use, and if you're part of our Grounded and Glowing membership, you have access to Full Scripts. Full Scripts is an online pharmacy for integrated holistic medicine, and I actually resell from Full Scripts. But there is a brand on there called Gaia, and I love their products. I love their oregano capsules. I love their elderberry. We use their, oh my gosh, my brain is not woke up yet. I have a coffee here. Maybe I'll pour some. Valerian root for helping Frankie sleep at night, holy basil for mucus and chest and just sinus, and so the list goes on and on. But that is one of the brands that I reach to all the time. And then I've started most recently working more and more with Banyan Botanicals, which is also a plant-based Ayurvedic company, and so using some of their stuff as well for digestion and other things. So it's really amazing. So I invite you as a listener to think about in your life where you may have been reaching for plants as medicine and not realizing it. Maybe it's an herbal tea with, a peppermint lemon tea when you're not feeling so great. Maybe you do actually reach for lavender or chamomile in the evening, or you even, for your children, they have like a lavender filled pillow. Like, you might be reaching for plant medicine without actually consciously knowing about it. And that's beautiful. That's so, so beautiful. All right, we're going to deep dive into stress relief using allies because, as you know, Cultivating Guts is moving more and more into this space of finding groundedness for the busy mom. Groundedness for this woman that has to go and do everything in life, but yet still has to be there for herself. And you got to be grounded. You've got to be grounded in order for your skin to radiate and glow. And for you to be like, if you're on video, I have no foundation on. This is just me. So I did put some eye makeup on and some lip gloss, and we called it a day. And so there is science now, and a lot of scientific studies that go and talk about different plants as medicine, and they test things out, and there's 20-year studies and 10-year studies by major companies. But if we reach clear back in to our history, we know that Hippocrates and the Greeks used certain plants to treat things. We know St. Hildegard. If you haven't heard about her, I would go research her. We're talking like 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, long time ago. She was in what we now know as Germany. And she was a saint for many reasons, but she was also a mystic at the time, which might sound a little taboo to you in the Western world because she was made a saint, even though she was a mystic. She talked to God, and she was what I would call a witch, even though maybe the Catholic Church wouldn't call her a witch. She was an herbal healer. She, like I said, violets. She used certain herbs to work on your teeth. She used calendula for treating like heart symptoms, and so her, I don't even want to call it research, her treatments that she used, her ways of using plants as medicine was researched recently within the last 50 years by German doctors and doctors in Switzerland, and they work still today. And to me, that's just another, like, check the box. Yes, God gave us what we needed on this earth, the plants, to heal what was wrong with us from a body perspective, from a mental perspective, for our health and our wellness. We have what we need. We don't need some chemical when everything that we need is already in a plant. And so it's just about finding which one is needed, which plant works for the symptom that you're having, but actually which plant works for the root cause. What do you need to do to get rid of the root of the problem so you don't have to treat the symptom? So I'm going to go through 3 herbs that are easily found. Oh, before I do this, let's talk about where sourcing is. Because like I said, you can grow them. But again, once you dry them, and then you start to use them, what you grow is great. Use it, especially if you're able to grow it organic without any pesticides or herbicides. You know how it was grown. But if you're unable to do that, next best place that I like to source herbs, if I can get them, is from our local European markets. And people are going to be like, well, why, Tiffany? Well, because in EU, there's no glyphosate. There's no Roundup. There's none of this stuff that's out there in our American fields. So I love to source from the European markets. I can get, if you go like into a Russian-based grocery store, there's a spider climbing up my microphone stand. A Polish-based grocery store or another European import market, you can find dry herbs in the tea aisle. So they're going to sell them as tea because a lot of herbs are used with tea steepers as a single, or you can blend them. And I like the blend. But that's my second backyard. Of course, if I can grow it, use it. If not, second best place that I like to go get fresh herbs is from the European markets and the corner deli stores. If I'm looking for Eastern or Asian herbs, I'm going to hit the Indian grocery stores. So stuff being imported from India, again, not as likely to have all of the pesticides that the American herbs will have. Third place that I will go to get herbs is Full Scripts. I will go on Full Scripts and look for essential oils. I will go on Full Scripts and look for, like I said, from Gaia, Banyan Botanicals, knowing that they are organic. They are responsibly sourced. Responsibly sourced means that you're not taking the whole plant. Even in your own backyard, if you were to grow a lavender plant, you don't want to pick the whole thing. You want to pick 2/3, and you don't want to disrupt the root necessarily unless it is something that you want the root for, like dandelion root. And which is another reason, don't spray your dandelions in your yard. Dandelion root is awesome for gastric, stomach stuff. Pull them out and dry them up, wash them, dry them, and grind those dandelion roots up so you can make dandelion stuff for your stomach. But, and like horseradish, we have horseradish in our backyard. I didn't pick it the first 2 years because horseradish, you want the root, but I wanted a well-established root system so that I could get to the roots, right? So same way with other plants, never pick the whole plant unless it's an annual, and then you know that it's not going to regenerate itself. But most herbs are perennials, which means they come back year after year after year, but they need a good root structure, and you need to leave 1/3 of the plant there. Okay, so that's what sustainably sourced means. Okay, so the 3 that I'm going to dive into, let's talk about lavender. Lavender, I think, is one that's commonly used. It's commonly put in baby lotions. It's found in things that you soak in. Whether it's like an oatmeal lavender bath, you can find it in calming. They mix it with magnesium to bring more calming and sleep properties. Lavender can be sourced. There's English lavender, there's French lavender, there's a bunch of different lavender plants. Some of the lavender is edible. Some lavender plants will cause diarrhea. So just know when you're sourcing lavender that you're going to want to get the specific lavender that you're looking for. So scientific studies are showing that lavender can reduce your anxiety and improve your sleep, which is why you're seeing it in a lot of mainstream products. In 2013 study by Phytomedicine, they found that lavender oil was as effective as Lazapran for general anxiety disorders without having the side effects of a chemical sedative, which, again, go back to plant medicine. You can use it in your tea, like I said. You can get lavender essential oils. People put it in their bath, whether it's oil form, or they even infuse it in honey. And to do a honey infusion, you will boil water, just like you were going to make tea. You'll put the herb in, and you will put a lid on it because you want the condensation to come back into the water. You don't want it to evaporate, so put a lid on it. Not plastic. You want glass, not aluminum, because you don't want aluminum. So preferably a glass lid and a glass bowl, or sometimes I'll even take a plate, like a pottery plate, or like we have cornery ware, I think is what it's called. Anyway, it's been around for 20 years in my cabinet. I'll put one of those on top of the glass bowl, and then you'll want the lavender to sit in the water overnight or up to 24 hours. And your tea is going to have a very dark color because you've over steeped it on purpose when you're doing a honey infusion. You're going to then strain off the plant, the herb, right, and have the liquid left. It is, depending on what you're doing, cough syrup is 2 parts the tea that you just made, the infusion, 1 part honey, and you heat that back up and you blend it together. If you're doing infused honey for like using it on toast or on bread or in your tea, you can do 2 parts honey and 1 part of what you just steeped. And then I have not really made garlic or ginger infused honey, but other people just fill a jar up with fresh garlic cloves, pour honey over it, put it somewhere dark to sit for 6 weeks or more, and then that honey is infused with garlic. They used garlic infused honey for like flu, inflammatory things like arthritis, stuff like that. Okay, let's talk about a second one because we're going to go through 3. Let's talk about chamomile. I grow chamomile. Last year my chamomile took over one of the whole beds. I kind of hope this year it does it again because it was so awesome. We could just go out and grab chamomile and grab chamomile and grab chamomile. Chamomile is, again, there's a couple different varieties of chamomile, and the leaves look a little bit different depending on the variety. Chamomile is totally digestible. You're not going to get sick from chamomile. Chamomile itself contains apigenin, which binds to brain receptors to promote sleep and reduce anxiety. So again, stress-relieving herbs are what we're talking about, right? There is a scientific study that was done in 2016 by NIH showing that chamomile significantly reduced the moderate to severe GAD symptoms in the brain. So where lavender is targeting the anxiety disorder, right, the stress, which is going to be like our adrenals, the chamomile is targeting the brain receptors for reducing anxiety. Chamomile, like I said, there's not any contradictions for it. It's really good for kids. You can use it as a mom. You can use it when you're pregnant. You can use it at bedtime as a tea for a ritual. If you have a diffuser, you can diffuse chamomile oil into the bedrooms. Chamomile can also be used for a slightly upset stomach, although I don't personally reach for chamomile for stomachs. I reach for peppermint. I reach for dandelion or ginger for stomachs. Okay, so that's chamomile. You can also and chamomile, you're harvesting the flowers. So just so everybody knows, we're not harvesting the leaves of chamomile. We're harvesting the flowers. Just like in lavender, we're harvesting primarily the flowers, not the leaves, okay? The third one we'll talk about is rosemary. Rosemary, as many of you know, sits on my desk. It sits over in my meditation space. Like rosemary, I reach to for protection, clearing, and clarity. Rosemary, from a science-based perspective, can enhance your mood and cognitive function. Reaching for it in the middle of the day for myself for clarity, right? It is shown to reduce your cortisol levels. So it gives you that level thinking brain again. You move out of your lizard brain and back into your thinking brain with the scent of rosemary. So you can just put rosemary on your wrist or in your palms, rub your palms together, inhale it, do a couple of maybe 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. Research in Therapeutic Advanced for psychopharmacological found that rosemary aroma improves memory and reduces anxiety. So I would even reach for rosemary to diffuse if somebody was having early stage Alzheimer's or dementia symptoms. It could even help there. I would reach for rosemary in the fact that I personally am having brain fog. Rosemary can be used as an herb, like in focaccia. You can make rosemary infused butter. You can do rosemary tea. Rosemary is also really, really great for your scalp. And so you can do hair rinses with rosemary. Again, you're going to make a long steeped tea. So you have the infusion, and then you're going to use that to rinse your hair out. And so those are a couple of things you can do with rosemary. Okay, let's third thing we'll talk about today is let's talk about a mini herbal recipe that you can easily make, a calming tea at home. You can make it in large batches, or you can make it so you can have a single cup, okay? I personally recently got a glass craft for making teas. You don't have to. You can use a steeper. You can use you can use a muslin cloth, like cheese fabric, cheesecloth. You could use a strainer, so you don't have to like go and have some fancy, I want to say fancy Nancy, but that's probably not appropriate. But you don't have to have a fancy tea craft, right? You don't have to have a tea craft. You can use whatever you got at home. It totally works. Okay, so for this calming tea blend, and this will be in the show notes as well, okay, guys? We're going to use 1 teaspoon of dried lavender, 1 teaspoon of dried chamomile, a half a teaspoon of dried rosemary. And if you want, you could add a few rose petals. Again, organically sourced roses, not the roses you bought at the flower shop that you had on your table for a week because those have been treated with chemicals, okay? Those are great to use like for other potions that you're not consuming. But these would be organic rose petals that you would want to pick up and specifically used for tea blends, okay? Or if you're growing roses in your backyard and you haven't sprayed them with anything, clip the dead heads off, dry them out, and save the petals. Now, what you're going to do there is you're going to combine all of those things we just talked about, the lavender, the chamomile, the rosemary, into a tea infuser or a muslin bag. You're going to steep hot water, not boiling. Most teas, you don't want water at 220 degrees. You want hot water that's just starting to have those little bubbles. If you have an electric tea kettle, you can set your different temperatures depending on the tea kettle, or you can shut it off when you start to hear it boil. But most of your teas, you don't want to be 212 degrees. Excuse me. I yawned. It is morning as I'm recording this because my house is still asleep. Okay, then you're going to steep that for 5 to 7 minutes. You're going to remove the herbs from the tea. You can add a little bit of honey if you want. And then sip it, close your eyes, breathe in the aroma of the tea. That will also help you. To make a bigger batch, store it in preferably a jar, not in the sunlight, that is airtight, okay? And you could even call it Mama's Pause Button Tea as a fun little name, right? But it is definitely a calming blend. You could even use this blend, like I said, for your children. You can use this blend for when you have friends over and you're just both wanting to rant and rave and you just need a release. Instead of reaching for the alcohol, you could make a nice glass of tea. One of my neighbors, one of my besties actually, she's getting ready to go to Poland, but for a vacation for her to see her family. But she is like, every time you're over there, she's like, can I make you a cup of tea? That's like her go-to. It's her way of hospitality. Come into my kitchen. Let me make you a cup of tea. I would call her a kitchen witch. Like, she is mad in the kitchen. It's awesome. Totally awesome. But when I think about somebody giving you a cup of tea, that is who I think about. All right. So let's get down to kind of the bottom of this podcast. I have my call to action for you today, right, is to sign up for our Grounded and Glowing membership. Not only do you get live breathwork Kriya sessions once a month that you can do and the recordings, you also have plenty of other recordings, but one of the fun things that we have in there is we have monthly recipes and monograph pages for each of the herbs as I introduce them month over month, which allow you to print them out and have your own herbal grimoire that you can reach to when you've got something you need to treat or you just want to learn more. Your first 7 days are free, you guys. Try it out. Herbal wisdom isn't just about what you drink. It's how you slow down, create ritual, and nourish your nervous system from the roots up. All right, the last thing I will mention is I have a live class if you're in the Chicago area on April 10th at Healing Light Wellness Center. We're doing a live full moon sound bath, and it will be a very special one for detoxing the body. All right, beautiful souls, that is a wrap on today's episode. Whether you're steeping a cup of lavender tea tonight or sprinkling some rosemary into your dinner, I hope you feel empowered to bring nature back into your rhythms, gently, lovingly, and one sip at a time. Let me know what your favorite part was and which herb you're most excited to work with next. Tag me in your creations or rituals on Instagram at I am Tiffany Hinton. I cannot wait to see you glowing. Here's one of my favorite herbal reminders. Herbs don't just heal. They remind us to slow down, listen, and come home to ourselves. Satnam. Love you guys. If this episode inspired you, please share it with a fellow mom or healer who could use some calm and clarity right now. And don't forget, my gift to you for leaving a podcast review is the Stress Buster movement video. So just a screenshot of your review, your subscribe, and it's all yours. You can email me your screenshot at Tiffany at cultivatingguts.com. Plus, our Grounded and Glowing membership is open for a 7-day free trial. Each month, you'll receive a seasonal herb of the month in a PDF. You'll receive custom recipes and tea blends to go along with it. You'll receive that herbal monogram that is built to build your own grimoire, and access to our sacred community chat, our live classes, and so much more. You can join us at cultivatingguts.com/grounding and glowing. And that link will be in the show notes as well. Until next time, stay grounded, stay glowing, and trust your body's wisdom.